Continuing on with DC's new age of heroes, we actually see the Immortal Men, one of the most delayed storylines and one that holds the most promise with its villains. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is an Ira Review, a show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. Make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. The comic that I want to talk about right now is the Immortal Men Number One, which is written by James Tynion IV with art by Jim Lee. And while Jim Lee's only going to be here for this first issue, it has been one of the most delayed and also one of the most anticipated books, simply because the villains inside this, the people that we're actually talking about when it comes to this storyline, are Immortals. And what is the Batman Who Laughs, this Joker archetype from DC's Dark Knight's Metal, doing here on the opposite side of the good guy? So I'm excited to see where this goes, and I hope you guys are too. So let's dive in deep and see what we can find out. We're now in the back half of DC's New Age of Heroes, and with book number 6, The Immortal Men, we are going to be getting a lot more involved when it comes to the history of the DC universe. This includes the Dark Universe and the regular universe around us, and is really focused around the Immortal Men, like Vandal Savage, like Ra's al Ghul, like Hawkman, and all these new characters that we're being introduced to inside this first issue of The Immortal Men. And it starts off in a very interesting way. We get exposure to a small seal that's going to be determining what kind of organization these Immortals are. There's devastation, there's death, the earth is breaking itself apart, skulls, and this ghost hand reaches out to Caden Park and pulls him into what appears to be some kind of giant pyramid campus, as he calls it, a place where they stand at the end of the universe, where a man beckons him with his eyes, telling him that it's okay, it's the place that he's meant to be, and you see a battle that is raging inside the background. Of course, this is really just a dream, it seems like, some sort of vision, some sort of out-of-body experience, because Caden Park is actually in Grand Central Station. He's at the subway, he's inside New York City, and he thinks that he sees the man again, but he doesn't, and then he's alone, and then he's with his therapist, as they're going over this kind of discovery. So he is talking about how he sees things, how he sees his friends playing Call of Duty. He's talking about the underground pyramid, and his therapist obviously doesn't believe him. This is a story that she's heard before. He saw Superman when he first went to Metropolis, and he's felt like he needs to be somebody special, like he needs to be a hero. This is something, it's kind of a flight of fantasy of a young adult. And when he reaches out and touches her hand, she assumes, of course, he sees nothing. He's like, yeah, I guess nothing, when in reality, he sees her sitting at her apartment, smoking on what appears to be a hookah, staring at the television set alone. And he's like, yeah, I don't see anything at all. We meet his parents. They obviously seem to be relatively well-to-do individuals based on the office that they're currently in and how they're appointing things. They've got a driver, they are sent out to a car service. He's got friends that are playing in a warehouse space down in the Bushwick, and his father is reminding him that he's getting a luxury that he wasn't afforded as a child. You know, some people didn't go to these kind of parties until we were in college, and I'm not naming names. But Caden is still trying to live this relatively normal life for somebody of his age. And that's when we bounce back to that pyramid, back to that underground city, that lost campus. It was established in 1732, sits underneath the city of Philadelphia, and what we see is this devastation. This is no longer a place of sanctuary, this is a place of death and destruction, and a body crawls across the ground saying, "The Immortal Man, he told me I would live forever. Told me I would save the world." His skull cracks open, blood spilling from it, and we are introduced to the Hunt. The Hunt is another immortal, somebody that feeds on the memories, the histories of those he's killed. That is the secret to his powers, the secret to his life force, his extended time on this planet. He feeds on these dead souls and what they have. We're also introduced to the Infinite Woman. The Infinite Woman is the oldest living human, founder of the House of Conquest, and we are going to get the impression that there are a variety of different houses inside this whole society of immortals. You've got the House of Conquest, you have the House of Action, which is what we're going to find out about later, and there's a possibility for more. There's probably a House of History and a House of Peace and all this other kind of stuff. There's going to be many immortals. This is an ecology. This is an entire society hidden behind the veil, controlling the world, moving it in its interests, and that's exactly what the Batman Who Laughs specifies. He's like, do you know how many worlds I had to kill in before I knew there was an entire race of immortals shaping the lives? You ought to be the most powerful beings on the planet, though you don't necessarily take any action. Of course, I don't know how they've allied with the Batman Who Laughs. The last time we saw him is in DC's Dark Knight's Metal, and he was battling the Joker as the entirety of Challenger Mountain seemed to collapse around him as they were trying to pull the Earth from the dark universe. Right now, all we need to know is that the Batman Who Laughs has allied himself with the Hunt and the Infinite Woman in an attempt to take down these other Immortals and show that the House of Conquest is the superior one. Flash into New York City, and we're inside the subway system, a few different workers that are trying to make their way through the tunnels underneath the city. As someone that we've seen in an earlier part of the issue just zaps all these guys, forcing them away. We find out that this is Ghost Fist, probably another one of the Immortal Men. We've got Stray, who is taking down these bloodless beings, a third who kind of looks like Moon Knight, who's called Reload, and then finally we have Timber, who looks to be of, Native American descent, and a battle is raging in between these two. These members of the House of Action, they are the only surviving Immortals from this wholesale slaughter of their house, and what their goal is, their final thing, while they haven't been able to honor and bury their brothers and sisters, the other members of their house, they are there to find Caden Park, the boss. The Immortal Man says that he is going to save the world. Flash over to the subway system where we see Caden with his friends, and a vision catches him out of the corner of his eye. The Immortal Man is walking through the walls, not necessarily into the next car, but walking through the wall into the next car, where we finally see Caden come face to face with this man that has been calling to him in his dreams, telling him that there's a place of sanctity and safety that he can come to and expose and grow his powers. Tell him that the campus is real, but it's not. The car has been cut. These people in front of him start to transform. This hologram is about to fade out, and we find that the Infinite Woman is controlling these bloodless beasts that are about to strangle him, and she's trying to extract the last pieces of information from him as she tells him that the only way to save the world is people killing other people. Competition, jealousy, and conquest are the only things that the world can understand. Heroes only save the world for a moment, but conquest lasts until infinity. Of course, this is interrupted by a giant zap from Ghost Fist. We see the axe of Timber come crashing down on one of the Bloodless. Stray is cracking the neck of one of them, and Reload is there holding a gun, letting Caden know that the campus is real and that the judgment of good men with righteous intent, that is what saves the world, and that they are the Immortal Men, and he needs to get up and fight. And that's how we conclude Immortal Men number 1. So I have a few small issues with the actual narrative structure of this. It's really heavy on the nameless, faceless narration that sets up the entirety of this. The beginning, it's like when Caden Park sees in his dream, etc., etc. And it makes the book feel a little bit more plotting. It feels a little bit more heavy. It doesn't necessarily carry weight to it, but it just feels a bit more like a slog, which unfortunately doesn't do Jim Lee's art justice in a few different scenes. The action scenes are fantastic, the character designs are great, it's just that I think that a lot of the text can really weigh down the action of the story, which unfortunately for an introductory issue doesn't necessarily keep people coming back for more. I think there's a lot of concepts that are really good in this one, and there's a lot of potential inside the book, so I can't wait to see where issue 2 and 3 go, how we kind of develop this concept, how Caden Park grows his abilities as an immortal, how he interacts as part of the House of Action, what we have for other houses. There's a lot of lore that you can really explore, which I find really interesting. However, I don't know if the average reader or if the person that is picking up this comic book is going to feel that exact same way. But that makes me more interested to see what you guys think, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.